Hello and welcome to Baseball Barbacast, the only baseball podcast in the world that knows there's no such thing as a free agent. I'm Jake Mintz, that's Jordan Shusterman, but there is such thing as a free lunch.
Yes, on this episode of Baseball Barbacast, we do our earliest possible check-in on free agency. Yes, it is many months away, but Jake released his first edition of the 2025-2026 Top 50 Free Agents list. And we're just going to have some fun talking about some baseball players, because that's generally what we do here on this podcast. And this is a worthy way to do that for some players that have obviously already been main characters this season and will be into the winter and beyond. We're also going to read some of your emails. baseballbarbacast@gmail.com. You've been keeping those wonderful emails coming. And then, of course, it's Friday. So we have the good, the bad, and the Uggla for you before we look ahead to the weekend. But Jake, our opener today is indeed free agency in April. Let's do it.
It's never too early to start thinking about how much money people you don't know are going to get.
That is a funny part of this, right? We're all just talking about these strangers' salaries and millions of dollars that will impact their families' generations to come, and we're debating whether they should get more or less than that. The weird part of this industry.
Weird part of the industry, necessary part of the industry, because one, it's interesting, two, and matters how teams are constructed and how good teams are. Why are we doing this now? Because thinking about how players are playing impacts free agency later, and the impending free agencies of players at times impacts how they play. I am not going to name any specific names. There are certainly circumstances in the history of baseball where a player, knowing that their free agency is coming up, turns it up a notch, whether it's in the weight room or a level of focus, or in Jurickson Profar's case, the good juice, right? Free agency does impact production on the field.
Yes. And with that in mind, I do think that something that I'm wary of, and the only reason, again, I'm excited to have this conversation because, again, I like to talk about baseball players, and this is just adds a layer of context that I think makes all these players' seasons interesting. I am not a huge fan of just like moving past what's happening right now. I know we're going to talk about Kyle Tucker here, and I know if you're a Cubs fan, like, you don't want to hear about Kyle Tucker's free agency because you just want to enjoy Kyle Tucker being on the Cubs right now, as you should. And I said that to someone this week. I was a Cubs fan who was like, I'm worried. Kyle Tucker's going to leave. He's going to go to the Yankees. It's like, don't worry about that. That's not the problem right now. Right now, the Cubs are having a great time, and Kyle Tucker's on the team. So I don't want to look past that. I don't want to skip ahead to when everyone is signing with the Dodgers and the Yankees. But I do think that, as you said, like, players with free agency on deck, like, it is an important part of their story and their careers, and it's just part of the way that we talk about them, and I think that that's interesting.
All right, where do you want to start? Probably Kyle Tucker, who obviously, no duh, is the top player on the rankings. In the same way that Soto was the obvious number one last year, Tucker will be the wire-to-wire number one free agent this upcoming winter. Tucker is not as good as Soto, but compared to the rest of the class, it is a similar gap. How's he doing so far this year, Jordan, after being traded to the Cubs? Well, he looks like a top 5 hitter on the planet. He has helped to revitalize the Cubs offense into 1927 Yankees murderers row. Maybe he could pitch in the bullpen too. That would be helpful.
Would be nice.
I was having a conversation with a Met recently, and I asked who's the most underrated player in baseball, and they said Kyle Tucker. And I was like, that doesn't seem like a good answer because we all know who he is, right?
Yeah.
And they were like, I understand that, but this guy's talked about like a top 25 player and not like a top 10, top 5 player.
Which at this point he probably deserves to be. And one of the big things about his season last year, and we don't have to dig too deep into the 26 games that he's played so far, but one of the things I was most interested about him going into this year with Chicago is, even though he missed a lot of time last year due to injury, the biggest difference in his production is that his walk rate jumped to like almost league best. He walked 16% of the time last year, and the strikeouts were still around 15%, which is way below league average. That has continued. so far this season. And that is really what is driving this production to an incredible level. And the strikeouts are actually now even down to a career low. You combine that to continue to play great outfield defense and run the bases well and just, hit for power. And it, as you said, it looks like a top 10 player, which is a big difference from a top 25 player because everybody knows who the top 10 players are. But in baseball, you can float in the 20 to 40 range without really getting that much attention. Just ask Ketel Marte. And so Kyle Tucker, having done it on the Astros, people have watched him a lot, but because he was never the face of the team at any point, now he's having that opportunity to really be the guy at the front of the line of oh, why are the Cubs awesome? Kyle Tucker.
There's going to be whenever he signs this winter. Actually, let's start with this. The Cubs and Tucker have been talking about an extension. That is a good thing for the Cubs to do. I am extremely skeptical that it happens just because Tucker is this close to free agency. He's kicking everyone's butt. Yes, he looks incredibly happy and is enjoying life at the friendly confines, but there's no reason not to just wait another 5 months here. He can't really, I can't foresee a scenario where the value goes down. I think the Cubs will be in play for him as a free agent. I just think that signing an extension doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and you could say, oh, well, what about Vlad? He signed it with free agency coming up. That's totally different. As much fun as Kyle Tucker has maybe had over the last few months, that's very different than spending 10 years in an organization and clearly wanting to be the face of the franchise. So whether we have no idea how much Kyle Tucker loves Chicago, wants to be there for the next decade, maybe he will, maybe he won't. I would not blame him either way because it's a new thing. You get traded. It was not up to him that he got traded to Chicago. That's a big life decision where he's going to be long term. So, but the point is, whether it's an extension, we're assuming not free agency, the obvious place to start when we're talking about the player at the top of the market is, all right, how much are we talking? And in this case, there are some interesting dynamics in play because this is where Vlad seemingly does become relevant. This is where Juan Soto seemingly does become relevant because, oftentimes we go year to year and the numbers kind of keep climbing. In the case of Soto, it might be a while before somebody is catching up to Soto because it was so unique. That said, because Kyle Tucker is such a more well-rounded player than Vlad and he's a couple years older, you're going to have people saying, all right, well, why doesn't he deserve more than Vlad Jr.? And the age is a huge part of that, right? And that's how you end up with such a gargantuan amount for Vlad from a total standpoint. I say you get to 14 years. I don't think Kyle Tucker's getting 14 years, but that AAV pretty comfortably should be, I think, above what Vlad's getting.
I feel very confident in the following sentence. Kyle Tucker is a better player than Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Now he's 2 years older, and that's going to change the calculation here. He'll be signing the contract basically it'll essentially 3 years older at time of signing.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So whereas Vlad got 14,500 and Soto got 15,765, I think that Tucker's average annual value will be in between the two. So Soto's was 51, Vlad's was 35. I think for Tucker, it'll look like 11 years between 40 and 45 million on an average annual basis. And that'll bring you to 11,470.
Yep.
I would not be shocked if it gets above 500. It will depend on all the other factors, right? Who is he signing with? What are the taxes like in that place? How much of the money is deferred? Are they going to do signing bonus shenanigans like they did with Vlad? How many opt-outs are there in the contract? All of those things will determine the final number. And is a good reminder that the 15,765 that Soto has, it's even more preposterous because there are no deferrals, right?
Yes. But
go ahead.
Totally. But I think that everything you just said is true. I think that the even most important thing of all of that is how many, again, as it was with Soto, how many of these big teams are driving up the price? Because it's very easy to just look at the age and the WAR and the how many years and get to 400 as the floor, 500 as plausible. But what really is going to drive it above 500, if it is going to get above that, is if the Cubs are in a legitimate push with the Yankees, with whoever with these other teams. That's how you end up getting to that number, because otherwise it's harder to envision it climbing that much higher, just because, again, he's not going to sign until through age 45. It's just the years thing is going to limit the cap. But I mean, again, I know he was older when he signed, but that was 40 AAV, which now looks like the easiest
bargain.
contract in the world. We know he's not going to be the best player in the game at the end of his contract, but still, that seems like a slam dunk. But right now, I mean, 40 plus is a layup for Tucker for sure at this stage in his prime still. And just the way that these works, the way free agency works is just like, okay, keep adding years, and that's how you end up probably getting the deal done.
And I think it will rise quite substantially because I do think all those teams are going to be in and interested. And I think that's going to include the Dodgers, right?
Yeah,
I think
Dodgers,
that's going to include
Yeah.
the Yankees. I think it will include I don't think it will include the Mets, but there's not really a spot for him in the outfield with Nimmo and Soto.
The Mets and Red Sox are a little bit harder to see the fit.
Sure, but like
in terms of the ones,
I think the Phillies will pick up the phone for sure.
Why not Toronto?
Why not Toronto? Like, I think that it's going to get to a preposterous level, and we're all going to get a notification. Like, tons of people in this country are going to get a notification on their phone that's going to say, like, Kyle Tucker, Cubs, 550. And they're going to be like, who is this?
Now, unless he, leads the Cubs to the World Series. Like, there's a version of this season where his profile is raised substantially. Like, I think that's part of why it's fun to have this conversation at this point, but also why it's silly because there's so much that we don't know from now until then. But I get your point, and obviously I agree. He is still on the lower end of fame, compared to talent level.
Enough Kyle Tucker. But you said this, Cubs fans, just enjoy it.
Yeah.
You might get it forever. You might not. And you know what? It doesn't make this summer any less real.
Yep. It's going great so far. Like, so far, you're not worried about Cam Smith, and you shouldn't be. All right, let's talk about some of the other guys at the top here. The other two is not as fun to talk about because we just talked about it all winter, is Alex Bregman and Pete Alonso. So these two guys ended up signing short-term contracts, or at least contracts that have opt-outs after this season. And at this point, with Pete Alonso's hot start, he has a $24 million player option for next year. I don't see any scenario that he picks that up, barring injury, I don't know, like he really truly loves the Mets more than anywhere else, and it's just like, screw it, I just want to be here no matter what. But even that, you'd opt out and ask for $25 million.
He loses his equipment. He's like, I don't know where my bat is.
If he forgets,
I can't get there.
If his car is out of gas and he just can't get to the stadium and he's just stuck, and then maybe that would be a situation. But other than that, he's gonna opt out. Bregman is a little bit more complicated because the number is $40 million, and while he's been an awesome fit so far, it's easier to envision a situation where if he reverts back to what he did last year, maybe, and he loves Boston, maybe he's like, all right, you know what, I'm not getting more than $40 million or even close to that in the short term, so let me just stick here and enjoy my time in Boston and make $40 million. That said, if these two guys opt out, which is extremely plausible, they are also once again going to be up at the top here, which again feels strange because we had them at the top just a year ago, and it took a while for them to get their money, and they ultimately did not get as much as maybe we expected.
So I struggled with these two for the following reason. They were lower on our free agent rankings this past winter than they are now. And I don't want to overreact to the two of them having hot starts, but at the same time, they have done nothing but confirm that they are quality, impact ball players.
If not even elevate, right? The versions that we're seeing.
Sure. And because of that, it feels like a lock to me that both of them will opt out. You say Bregman is more complicated because of the number. So that number is 40 million, but because of deferrals, it's actually much closer to 30, right around 31 million, which again, I'll take it. Just Venmo me. But it's for 2 more seasons at 31. If you think about it like that, right? Should Alex Bregman opt into 262? No. Like whatever the Tigers offered him,
that's closer to Pete,
which was he went to the Red Sox because he didn't get the long-term contract he wanted, or he didn't want to go to the Tigers. I think if he comes back onto the open market in a overall slightly weaker free agent class, he's going to get the long-term deal that he is searching for. And so because of that, it's hard for me to see that scenario. Now, what's most interesting about this, as well as it's gone for the Red Sox, do they want him to opt in? Like, they have all these different infield pieces, and they had to move Devers to DH. Like, is that good for the Red Sox? Probably, because he's been such a difference maker. But to me, Pete is less compelling right now because it's like he's hitting the snot out of the ball and he's going to go to free agency and get the deal that he deserves. That's going to be over $100 million. And I honestly still think it'll be the Mets. Like, I still think the Mets are going to pay it.
Yeah.
Bregman, though, it's like, what type of production level is the line for him to opt into this next year? I don't know.
Yeah, and what you said about like, oh, what do the Red Sox want? I mean, that's always in play for these kind of strange opt-out situations. Is it's like oftentimes they end up in these deals because they help get the deal done. And, you know, it could go both ways. You can't imagine that the team is thinking like, oh, great. Bellinger. Right. It's like, great. Well, look with that now. Now the team's like, ugh, like we wish he would opt out, but that's not happening. And you end up with essentially a salary dump. So now we don't envision that happening with Alex Bregman, but I do agree there are some interesting incentives in play there, and his is a little bit harder to figure out. That said, I mean, I guess it would be a weaker class than last year. I think that's true.
It is.
But, you know, we can get into that now, right? Like, who are the other position players he would really be competing with? We can talk about that now. But I don't know. Bregman is a tough one, as you said, and that's one too. With because of all those strange roster dynamics with Boston, really hard to know how they would really feel about that at this stage.
So below Bregman and Alonso, I have Schwarber and Marcell Ozuna grouped together. Above, like, the next group of domestic position players, which is like Mullins, Josh Naylor, Bo Bichette, Luis Arraez. That quartet could jump. Except for Arraez, who I just don't know what to do with as a free agent, and so I'm not moving him. How do you evaluate that? I have no idea. Bichette is obviously the one who you could say, like, with a strong season, he could go as high as number 4 on this list, above Schwarber and Ozuna. The comp there is just Willy Adames, right? If you're looking at age, shortstop, it's a different type of production. But if you're going by overall value, I mean, Bichette was a better player before last season than Willy Adames was. Now, Bichette's completely disastrous 2024 is a relevant part of the story, and whether he can bounce back this year is something of an open question. He has been hitting the ball hard. He has not been hitting it in the air. But from 2020 to the end of 23, 20th most valuable player in baseball. Not shortstop, 20th best player. And for that type of player to hit free agency as a shortstop at age 28 smells like the type of massive contract that would go beyond $200 million.
Yes, especially when I don't see any other shortstops on this list. And that would be part of what would help his case, right? And again, that was one of my, bold predictions coming into the season that we did in the bold predictions pod was Bo bounces back and gets $250 million, which at this point still seems pretty optimistic for sure. That's why I believed it to be a bold prediction. There are parts of what he's done that makes me feel better about that. And there are parts of it. It is strange, by the way, because I know I've been saying he hasn't hit it in the air. His launch angle is actually up from the past few years, which is very strange. He has had a couple near misses. He does have the most plate appearances in baseball this year without a home run. But I'm still mostly encouraged. And if he can stay on the field and keep hitting the ball hard, like I said, he's going to be the shortstop available. And that alone could put him in pretty strong position to get a lot of money. Is it 250 is probably optimistic, but that's why it was bold.
I think the comp here would be Trevor Story, who hit free agency from 28 into 29, which is a year, I believe, older than Bichette, coming off a similarly disappointing walk year. Like, Trevor Story was incredible for a couple of years in Chicago, was a average hitter his last year before free agency, and I believe his deal was 5-110, around that range.
Yes. 6-140.
6-140, which is the same thing with another year. About, kind of, sort of. But 6-140, that feels like the goal now for Bichette. Still doesn't have a home run. The other position player I want to talk about, and we can do a little pitching and then take a break, is Munetaka Murakami. Now, Murakami is, as I assume you could probably tell, considering you maybe haven't heard of him, he has a Japanese-sounding name, and he's not on a big league team right now. He's the next big NPB guy who's coming over. He is a hitter which is different than most of the big names we've gotten the last couple of years. He hopped onto the map in 2022 when he cranked 56 homers as a 22-year-old, which was the record, and it still is the record for a domestic Japanese player in the NPB. And in the years since, he has slightly tailed off, not in a concerning way, but he just hasn't replicated a OPS over 1,000. And he is going to come over here at the age of 26 next season and is a fascinating test case. He is built like Vlad Jr. Okay. There are some Soto-y elements to the swing. I mean that in terms of the opposite field power, the lower half flexibility, the way that Soto can like bend down under a ball, right? Think about like peak Christian Yelich was like this, where he just almost looks like he's squatting up through a baseball. Murakami has some of that. He does not have Soto's contact ability or swing decisions. Like there's
he
a lot
walks
more,
a lot, but yeah, there's a ton of swing and miss. So
there's a ton of swing and miss. And so that's where the concern comes in. He has, having Vlad Jr.'s body, he also has Vlad Jr.'s defensive profile, where you're like, he could be a bad third baseman, a decent first baseman, or a DH.
Yes. And with that in mind, and Murakami is worthy of a much larger discussion. It's a fascinating career. And basically another important data point is that he's been injured to start the season. So all indications are he is planning on making the jump to MLB after this year, but who knows what this season is going to look like for him, I would say.
An important note about that is after his record-breaking season in 22, he signed a 3-year deal with the Yakult Swallows, and there's a provision in that contract that says at the end of the deal, they will post him to MLB teams if he requests. And so if he has any type of productive season, he's going to make the jump. Now, because he's only played in one game from which he was removed and put back on the IL, there is now a scenario in play where Murakami is so injured that he maybe takes one more year in Japan to kind of boost his profile back up. If he makes the leap, though, I have no idea what this looks like.
Well, and so the other important thing here too, coming off of Roki Sasaki, is it would not be a Roki Sasaki situation. He would be, because he's played enough seasons in Japan, he would be a full free agent, which is very important because that puts you in a better position when you are 26 years old to sign a long-term deal worth a lot of money. Is it going to be on the Yamamoto level for a hitter? I doubt it, unless he gets healthy and hits 50 homers again. It doesn't seem likely. But that is part of it, which is why I just wanted to mention Kyle Schwarber and Marcell Ozuna again before we talk about the pitchers, and then we'll take a break, is that will be one of the most, I think, fun parts of let's hope Murakami gets healthy and has a good season and becomes a free agent. One of the debates that will absolutely be happening, assuming that Schwarber and Ozuna continue to be awesome, is like, which of these big bats are you going for? Because you have Schwarber and Ozuna, who now just have, of course, so many years of elite offensive performance at the major league level, but they're, going into their mid-30s and also offer little to zero defensive, value whatsoever. You'll have some people being like, no, I want to get the next big thing, someone who's trending up in Murakami, but is also still a bit of a question mark. How that dynamic plays out. I mean, I would assume Murakami's going to get more money almost no matter what because of his age, if he is healthy and good. But you're going to see a lot of debates about that and comparing those players, because what Schwarber and Ozuna have done offensively in recent years is tough to deny. I mean, they have just been so impactful as they've. I mean, again, it's really remarkable. So I'm excited for kind of those comparisons.
And then the last thing before we take a break, pitching, because someone does need, as these Orioles have shown, someone does need to get the outs. I would say there's a pretty clear top 5 starters for this class. That's Dylan Cease, Michael King, Framber Valdez, Jack Flaherty, Zach Gallen. I have Gallen and Flaherty kind of in a tiny mini group below that other trio. The thing that I really did not realize or appreciate about Dylan Cease is how much he's thrown.
Yes. This is one of his like sneaky superpowers. Knock on wood, we know every pitcher is capable of getting hurt at any moment, but his durability is astounding not just relative to his peers, but kind of relative to how Dylan Cease was talked about for so long as this prospect who had this nasty stuff. Oh, is he going to hold up as a starter, both from a durability standpoint and from a, stuff standpoint? He has been one of the most durable pitchers in baseball. And if he can carry that all the way to free agency, that is going to make him rather appealing. Now, I know the ERA is not pretty right now because he had one catastrophic start in Sacramento. But other than that, like, the talent is still here fairly undeniable. And that track record, I think, is going to put him in a good spot.
He has the most starts since the beginning of 2020.
Wow. Yeah. I knew he was in the top 5. I didn't know he was number 1. So, and yeah, I mean, we know some of those pitchers, what's happening with Aaron Nola right now is not a very different profile, but, that could also be viewed as a negative. Maybe there are some teams that view all the mileage as kind of a scary thing. But again, this group is an interesting bunch. When you compare it, right, obviously this past year, we had Max Fried, we had Corbin Burns, we had Blake Snell as kind of that big 3. And then there was kind of another tier below that in the kind of $70 million range. We had Eovaldi, we had Severino. But I'm most compelled by Fromber, I think, is one of the ones that is the guy that I just, because I've been such a fan of him since he, came up, and he's just such a unique pitcher who's off to an okay start. But yeah, all these guys have kind of concerning red flags, and all of them, there are reasons to love them.
So this is why I think the class is weaker. I would take all of Snell, Burns, Fried over Cease, Fromber, Michael King.
I think that's fair.
And I think that is the difference here. I could start Cease, Fromber, or King in game 1 of a playoff series and feel good. I could start Fried, Corbin Burns, Blake Snell and feel great. I just think it's a slightly higher ceiling with that other group. Doesn't mean that these guys are invaluable. Doesn't mean that they won't get a lot of money and they aren't good pitchers. If I'm just comparing classes, that's relevant. And the last thing about this class that I want to point out is if you need a reliever, I got great news for you. There are a ton of quality relievers available. Ryan Helsley, Devin Williams, both hitting the market as premier closers at 31 years old. They'll be 31 next year. That feels rare. They're both in line for a payday. I know Williams has been meh so far this year, but I'm still a believer. Robert Suarez, Luke Weaver, Raisel Iglesias, Kirby Yates, Kenley Jansen, again, Kyle Finnegan, again, who's looked great. It's a strong reliever class. How you order those, who knows? One of them will be horrible immediately upon signing a big deal next year. That's just how this goes. One of them,
or will remain horrible this season. I mean, that's the thing. Who knows so much is going to happen with these guys from now until the end of the season. But the track records here for this many relievers is pretty astonishing. I agree.
Because sometimes you give a reliever a lot of money, and they are Jeff Hoffman this year, who has been the best reliever in the world. And so, trying to predict
sometimes
that,
they're Tanner Scott, who's like, I mean, he hasn't been terrible, but he's already been, I think, disappointing relative to getting $70 million. But that's reliever. So have fun with that. And then, I mean, there's plenty. Again, you can go check out the rankings over Yahoo Sports. And I guess we should just acknowledge quickly, like, Cedric Mullins and Josh Naylor are not
making money,
again, considered at that top, but they are off to tremendous starts and putting themselves in. Of course, they've had great seasons in the past, but they are really off to the kinds of starts where they could be putting themselves in the, over 50 million. Can you imagine either of them getting 100 million? It's a little hard, maybe Mullins, but either way, they are in position right now to get in the 50 to 70 to $80 million range, which is pretty impressive considering some of the questions they've had in recent years. But there are, of course, plenty of other players that we are going to enjoy talking about. JT Realmuto will be a very interesting case. There are plenty of other guys on here as free agency approaches and as their seasons unfold. But that is our early look at free agency. Let us know if we've missed any of your favorite potential free agents. But for now, we're going to take a quick break, and when we return, we open up the mailbag and read some of your lovely messages and questions. We'll be right back on Baseball Barbacast.
And welcome back to Baseball Barbacast. Let's open the mailbag. Jordan, I am moving.
Heard about that.
Couple months. And I am terrified to have to change my mailing address. Thankfully, even though I may miss bills and notices when I move, I will have the same email for baseball questions, and that is baseballbarbacast, BARBcast @gmail.com. Let's go through some of your emails. Off of the Cubs 2-game series victory over the Los Angeles Dodgers, we got a deluge of inquiries regarding the terminology of a 2-game sweep. If 3 games is a sweep and 4 games is a mop, what is a 2-gamer? Charlie, amongst like 75 other people, emailed us about this.
Cubs fans wanted to know. It appears that it's interesting. Did not hear as much from Dodgers fans after they took the 2 games in Tokyo, which is, of course, important to note. That is why they played these 2 games, because this is the completion of their season series. To think about this as one series is silly, but it's also thinking about any 2-game series as a series is also part of why I am less compelled by this. I like the suggestions. If you want to call it dusting, that's great. But like, it's not, to me, it's not even a win streak if it's 2 games. So it's like, I don't think this is really anything. I don't think this is a series. It's just like a schedule quirk.
So it's not really a series. You're saying it's more like a kickback. It's more like a hangout. More like a chill sesh.
Yeah. The Cubs were like, hey, come on over. We're going to score a bunch of runs
against you. If you can play that number of games in a single day, it's not a series. Can I double header over 2 days?
That's a great point. I also will say, just about those games in general, it did feel like kind of karmic balance that's how those games went after the games in Tokyo were considered Cubs home games. Like, after that, we were like, this is ridiculous. Like, these are not Cubs home games. This past week, those are some Cubs home games. So I feel like it really, really balanced it out. But anyway, back to the original premise.
Well, and the way that series just flowed, that 2-game kickback just flowed.
Chill sesh.
Felt like 7 games, right? And so it feels like that specific one deserves a name. I think dusting, if you want to call a 2-game victory a dusting, that's great. It is less than a sweep.
Definitely.
It is less than a mop. That is fine. Now, we have gotten also some emails about 6-game minor league sweeps. The minor league season is such that teams just spend the whole week together. They play Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday with a Monday off day. Okay.
Yes.
So if you win all 6 games, which is incredibly difficult, I think that's a deep clean.
Yeah. Deep clean. We've heard power wash. This has me more interested. First of all, just the premise. I mean, this has been true in the minors for a few years now. This is just how they've made schedules, which, by the way, does make logistically a ton of sense. Like, for the purpose of minor league baseball. That said, it also results in some strange realities, which is there are pitchers that start against the same team twice in the same series, which, like, in the big leagues, you really only get that in the postseason, right? But you have very often you have the same pitcher starting on Tuesday and Sunday in the minor leagues, which presents some interesting challenges. We know in the minor leagues, the game planning is a little bit different, but how starters kind of react in that sense is different. But the point is, the reason why we love MOP so much is because it's just like the notion of either going into a city or welcoming a team in and just winning all 4 times in a row. Doing that 6 times in a row, even if the point of minor league baseball is not to win or lose, that has to be pretty demoralizing and also empowering for those that are able to complete a 6. Because again, in that case, it's like a 6-game winning streak. That by itself is already like, that's a pretty serious winning streak. So I like that. But
hit him with a scrub down.
We'll keep welcoming those suggestions. But
I will say,
generally, I like the 6-game more than the 2 games.
Dusting feels apt and fitting and good. It's quick. I have not gotten a fulfilling answer in the 6th game yet. Power wash, deep clean, scrub down. I don't like that they're 2 words, right? Yeah. That's a dusting. That's a mop.
Waxing?
That's a sweep.
What if you're waxing the floor? I mean, again, that's pretty extreme, but
that's not cleanliness.
It's not right.
Email us 1 word, please.
1 word. That's true. I think that's what we're looking for. And that's why I think MOP hits so hard. Who's next? We got a few more. We got a bunch of good emails. Where do you want to go to next?
Let's go with Colin. This is something we've talked about a couple times, but I liked the way that this was phrased. So we're going to read this. Hi, Jake Jordan. First time, long time. I am here now to ask you how it is for you both as avid baseball fans that work in national baseball media to root for your respective teams. Has access to players and teams watered down your own fandom for Baltimore and Seattle? I know it'll rarely come across on the good as you'd like to appeal more to the national crowd. Please talk about my Cardinals more. No.
But I was rereading. They got mopped by the Mets.
They got mopped by the Mets. I will say they did get mopped by the Mets. I came away thinking better thoughts about the Cardinals than before they got mopped. Like, I was generally encouraged by them.
They're fine. They're
They
okay.
still got mopped. They're fine.
Yeah,
I was rereading Joe Buck's book, Lucky Bastard, and always loved the part where he talks about how he follows the St. Louis Blues more passionately than the Cardinals in his adult life because of his exposure to working and growing up with the Cardinals teams of his father's era. Sure, baseball has changed in the decades between airplane cigarettes and greenies in the coffee, but surely there has to be some leakage to your own fandoms through the years of hard-hitting good, bad, and Ugglas. After all that, I don't want to wind this up in a cute way or anything else. I'm going to go put my daughter to sleep. What are your thoughts? Thanks, Colin. So here's the deal. We have different thoughts on this, I think, you and I, a little bit. Slightly. Undeniably for me, the way that I view the Baltimore Orioles, the team that I grew up rooting for, has shifted dramatically over the last 3 to 4 years. Part of that is because they're relevant now. And so for when the O's were terrible and we were working in this space, there was no worry about bias, right? It was like, I know they stink. They know they stink. You know they stink. And so it was easy to like turn on a crap team winning 55 games a year and cheer for, you know, Pedro Severino or Austin Hayes. Like that was easy. That was easy. Now it's a lot more difficult. I have 1,000 more thoughts, but I'll kick it to you.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think part of why we are in a unique position for this is that like we are, of course, very lucky for what we do, and we've turned this into a career, and that's all awesome and fun, and we recognize like the responsibility of what that means, and so we take that very seriously. This also is not, you know, a lot of the people that go into this, it's like, all right, I am now pursuing a journalism career, and that will slowly shed away my fandom. And like, that's not how we got into this, right? That was not, you know, part of why we were so excited to talk about baseball all the time is because we were baseball fans. And so that still, I think, drives a lot of the passion and the interest. And ultimately, like, to me, the remnants of just like me, whatever, still liking the Mariners is just like, that's the team I've just gotten used to watching the most. And so it's as much as just like, that's the team I'm most comfortable turning on and being familiar with. And at the very least, it is nice to still feel like there is one team that I like know more than the others. But from an emotional standpoint, from like getting stressed from getting mad about wins and losses, that's absolutely gone down. Because I've been fortunate enough to like get to know people in the Mariners organization, whether it's PR, whether it's, you know, whatever, like Aaron Goldsmith or whatever, like, yeah, like, of course, I still think it's really cool when they win. I still think, but the bigger thing is that I think it's just opened up because we just have now relationships with people across the league. And we've said this before. It's like we're just rooting for people all over the place all the time. And that also maybe makes us unique relative to the average BBWAA member. And I'm not really going to hide from that because I still think that we can do the jobs as responsibly and reasonably as we can. But I think part of it is just how we ended up in this place in the first place. And to pretend like that didn't exist, I feel like is disingenuous.
I think Carlos Rodon is like a perfect vehicle to talk about this for a couple different reasons. Like, we've known Carlos since we were both in college. So that's like 11 years now, which is nuts to think about. Yeah. And so like when Carlos pitches against the Orioles, I would prefer for Carlos to do well, right? My connection to the Orioles at this point is mostly familial, where like my mom watches them and my aunt watches them. And so like having something to talk to with those people is important. And like when the Orioles one day win the World Series, I will care more about that than I did when the Rangers or the Dodgers won, because my grandpa, who is the person who got me into baseball, like that would have meant something to him, and trying to remove that feeling from the dynamic is impossible. It's impossible and it's in some ways irresponsible. But like for Carlos is an example, like we can both hope that he does well and acknowledge the reality that as a Yankee, he has been disappointing, right? both of those things are true. And I also think there's an element of this where for a lot of reporters who have proclivities towards certain teams, there's like a pro bias. I almost feel this way as like when my dad was my Little League coach, he was harder on me than he was on the rest of the teams. Like I watched the Orioles more than the other teams, and I watched them. I'm like, these dopes. Like
totally. I feel that for sure.
But acknowledging these biases is important, but I am just a lot more cognizant and careful about it, and it doesn't necessarily change the way that I think about teams, right? Everybody in the BBWAA who does this for a living is admittedly, publicly or not, pulling for certain players with whom they have better, meaningful relationships. And I think for the most part, that doesn't impact their work at all, right? Or impact their work on a significant level. And I think being able to recognize the reality of that is important. I think it would be like it would be BS to claim that that doesn't exist, right?
Yeah. And I think that's
but
part
you
of
also
it.
you have to use it responsibly. You have to like operate responsibly. And I like to think that we have done that.
Yeah. And I also would just say that like this is like a moving target. Like this is still something that I think we're in the process of figuring out. Sure. And like it is going to continue to change as we do this, because there's part of me when I hear like the degree to which people completely, but it's interesting, like talking to other people, other baseball writers about it, like there is a range of like where they still occupy, where that fandom still peaks out, because in some cases, they've completely removed it entirely from baseball. I've heard of other cases where it's like they're covering one team and still, secretly pulling for another. Like so there's versions of this across the league, and I think that's okay.
Do feel a void in my life that I don't have a team to live and die with right now.
Yeah,
as a fan, and when I move home to DC in a couple months, I can see myself just getting irrationally invested in the Wizards for absolutely no reason, because like I want that feeling again that I felt in 2012 when the Orioles and Joe Saunders beat the Rangers in the wild card game, right? Like I miss that. It is certainly different than it once was. And like, this is, to be honest, like I've just been hyper aware of this ever since like all the stuff happened with Orlando Arcia and the Phillies and the Braves. It's like, am I operating responsibly in this space? When all that went down, I believe to this day that I did. And that had that been in the Orioles clubhouse, I would have reported that, because it was my job in that moment to tell the story of what I was seeing, right? Like I reported Garrett Stubbs saying F the Mets like 2 weeks before that in the Phillies room, And so this is something I do think a lot about.
Sure.
But you're right, it is an evolving thing.
Yeah. I will say I'm glad you did mention the like not having the team that you cheer for. And I do think that I will say personally is like that I haven't had another team that I liked or cared about in other sports at all. Like since really I started watching the Mariners a lot, like in high school.
When you were cheering for the Houston Rockets.
Well, I mean, I've promised before. Good timing here. My team when I was in 10 to 13 was the Tennessee Titans. Like that was when I was super into football. Like the Titans were my number one. That was it. That was like the team I cared about the most, because I was like a huge Steve McNair fan, rest in peace. And I was just like, oh my God, this is that team. So I know they had the number one pick last night. You would think I know all about it because I still like the Titans on Facebook. So that's how I kind of keep up with them. But I haven't had another team. I didn't, because I don't have that. Like that's also part of why I've held on, because I don't have U.S. other one, Manchester City. There's a couple other examples, and maybe I'll find that too for another sport at some point.
I had that about Manchester City when like I got into them in like 2010, and then they got
too good.
And then they got too good, and I don't wake up and watch, and I watch cycling all the time, but I don't live and die. Jordan, you know what we should do? It'd be fun. You and I should pick a team together from a different sport to get irrationally invested in, and email us baseballbarbacast@gmail.com. What I'm kind of inclined to say not football.
I'm thinking hockey. I'm thinking hockey. I would love to have some hockey nominations. I know
you're more of a
maybe you're
going
to
get
into the Caps. There's no NHL team. I know the Blue Jackets, whatever in Ohio, but I'm open. I know the playoffs are happening right now, so like I don't know if that means it's the best or worst time to like super get into a hockey team, but I would be interested in that. I know we get emails sometimes like, "Oh, what team should I start rooting for?" That would be fun if we should start going all in on one together.
Okay. Jake and Jordan picking a puck club together, pucking it up.
Anyway, so thank you, Colin, for your thoughtful email. Hopefully that was
one more email.
Response.
One more email, and we'll take a break.
Yep.
This is from Michael. This email really made me laugh. It's titled "Retired Athletes Business Ventures." Hi, Jake and Jordan. Walking to work in Chicago, I saw an ad for FT35 vodka. That's Frank Thomas's vodka brand. Two bottles next to Frank Thomas and his wonderful smile. That's all there is to it. My personal tagline is vodka that doesn't big hurt. What other athletes have nicknames that complement or subvert a product they can sell once their playing days are over? I'll be getting a bottle of Thomas's vodka to test it if my tagline is accurate in the near future. Wishing you all the best, Michael. Athlete booze is a thing that fascinates me. I need to get a bottle of wine from Chris Iannetta and Vernon Wells's winery that they run together. Anyway, I prepared some stuff, Jordan. I have 6 ideas here.
Oh, okay. Oh, all right. So this is your ideas. This isn't, you haven't done research and found other examples.
No.
By the way, Michael, I love this tagline. So I don't know how accurate it's going to end up being, whether or not Frank Thomas's vodka does or doesn't big hurt. But all right, what you got?
Now, this is related to a general, decline in nickname quality over the years as the whimsy has been sucked out of society.
True.
Sorry, that was dark. Hey, do you like fizzy cold water? Well, I, Pete Alonso, am here to tell you about Polar Seltzer. As the polar bear,
yes,
no one knows polar more than me. I couldn't bear to drink anything but polar.
There we go. Thank you. I was going to say it was a little light before you got to that last part. I'm a little concerned that hasn't happened yet. I'm not sure what else Pete Alonso needs to do to get that polar brand deal. But that's solid. It's fine.
Lights, trees, ornaments. Down at Party City, every Christmas is a big Christmas with me, John Kenzie Noel.
So I don't again.
Where do you buy Christmas supplies? We're Jews. We don't.
Here's the problem with this. I don't think that's where you get Christmas ornaments. This is an interfaith household. We have a Christmas tree. Party City is not like the spot. I don't think under any circumstance.
Is Christmas not a party?
But there's something there with Big Christmas. It's not Party City, so that's a thumbs down.
Okay. Are you having issues back there? Do you find that you need to treat your big dumper better? Well, I, Cal Raleigh, am here with Tushy's Bidet.
Ooh, wow. Okay. So that's interesting. I think the level to
Cal
which
Raleigh's butt implants.
Yeah, but that's the problem. That's the thing. I think that
or like a
Cal
workout
Raleigh
plan
has embraced the big dumper moniker about as much as you could possibly hope. And I think this is pushing it in a direction that is not probably what he's looking for.
That's fine. All right. Jordan, are you familiar with the Packaging Corporation of America? They offer custom corrugated packaging for businesses, and they experience tailor solutions from a committed team dedicating to delivering results and building your trust. Okay. A box isn't just a box. Your packaging impacts your entire operation. And that's why I, Pete Crow Armstrong, have partnered with PCA, the Packaging Corporation of America.
Now I know you said, do you know about the packaging? Now I do, thanks to PCA. So
I think this is like an organization, or I guess not, they're a corporation. They just make corrugated boxes.
Dude, people need boxes, man. Here's why this doesn't work. PCA is one of the most exciting players in baseball. And this is one of the least exciting
Oh, man.
industries that you can fathom. Now, maybe you could argue that's why it's perfect, because he can kind of like spice it up, bring some life to the packaging, to corrugated cardboard. You know, if anyone can make corrugated cardboard exciting, it's probably Pete. That said, I'm not loving the forced PCA.
That's an insulting comment to new PCA CEO Mark Cowlzan, who was just named the American Forest and Paper Association's incoming board chair. So,
all right. Well, congratulations, Mark, but I don't feel bad about what I said.
Okay. And then the last one is a stretch, but here we go.
Oh, yeah. Like the other ones. Yeah. Continue.
All right. Okay. Are you familiar with Trout National Golf Course?
Oh, of course. This is, for those unfamiliar, Mike Trout is in the process of building a golf course in his hometown of Millville, New Jersey, designed by Tiger Woods. One of the great rich person flexes I've ever heard of. We love Mike Trout. Trout National. Go ahead.
Well, down the street from Trout National in Millville, New Jersey, is a spot called Danny's Pizza Pizzazz. It has 541 reviews on Jujul. They sell za, I assume. And I think that there's a crossover opportunity here. Okay. The newest pie from Danny's Pizza Pizzazz has sausage, bacon, pepperoni, because in Millville, it's meatier.
Meteor lovers?
Meteor. The Millville Meteor Pizza, brought to you by Mike Trout, a.k.a. the Millville Meteor.
What a stretch. What an effort.
Thank you.
I give you an A because of the shamelessness with which you presented that. But I don't think anyone would have any idea what you were talking about. So, I mean, I guess maybe in Millville they would, but.
And to be clear, it is a mere 11-minute walk from Trout National to Danny's Pizza Pizzazz. It is right next door, down the street.
I mean, the question is, has Mike Trout patronized Danny's Pizza Pizzazz?
I'll ask him when the Angels are in town.
All right. Sounds like a plan.
Because we're journalists.
Baseballbarbacast@gmail.com. Thank you to those who emailed us. We actually have one more email coming up in the good, the bad, the Uggla, which we are going to do. When we return. We'll be right back.
And welcome back to Baseball Barbacast. It is the best time of the week. No, not Monday morning. No, not Wednesday evening. The good, the bad, and the Uggla. Every Friday, we bring it into your ears. One thing good, one thing bad, and one thing that reminds us of Dan Uggla from the week that was. My dear friend, please begin with your good.
Very simple one. Matt Gorski. Who's Matt Gorski? Matt Gorski made his Major League debut for the Pittsburgh Pirates last night.
It's the most
Jake wants,
make your debut as a 27-year-old name ever. Like, a guy, respectfully, named Matt Gorski is not a top 10 prospect.
Yeah. Well, he wasn't.
Making the bigs at 20, right? Like, Matt Gorski has to grind in the minors.
It's true. It's true. And he did, since he was a second-round pick in 2019. He's just your classic, just athletic center fielder, strikes out too much to ever really be considered a real prospect, but has big power. What is good from him this week is that in his first Major League at-bat, he hit a home run. And it's not just that he hit a home run. He absolutely pulverized a home run off of Angels pitcher Tyler Anderson. 115 exit velo, which from what I can tell is the second highest exit velocity of Matt Gorski's at least career in the last few years since he's been, playing in StatCast parks in AAA. And I just love this so much because I've thought a lot about first career hits recently, seen a couple of them, and you never know what's going to be. Okay, maybe you beat out infield single. Maybe
I've seen a lot of dribblers. I feel like I've seen a lot of dribblers.
And listen, this isn't to take anything away from the infield hits that are first hits or dumping one over the second baseman. It's fine. Like, a hit is a hit. I get that. That said, this is such a badass way to just introduce yourself. It's not just that he hit a home run, it's that he destroyed a home run. Like, it's so satisfying because you just never know. You're picturing like the first Major League hit. Oh, like, I feel like most times you're thinking about it, it's like, all right, I'm just gonna single to left field. Will Wilson the other day had his first career hit for the Guardians, and it was just like a hard hit ball into left field grounder. It's like, great. That's really what you picture when it's like, there's the first hit. Nick Kurtz had his single up the middle. That's what you picture. But to have your first home run, your first hit just be this missile of a homer is so cool, and just like something that, talk about, especially for a guy like Matt Gorski, where like, I don't, bless his heart, I don't know how long of a career he's going to have, but this is one where it's like, he will always have that. I mean, there have been, the number of balls hit this hard this season is a pretty short list. And I'd love this for Matt Gorski. So it was good.
My in-laws, one thing I love about them, one thing I love about my in-laws, there are many things, but one thing is that after dinner, they always go on a walk. Anytime we have dinner at their house, we always go on a nice walk afterwards. Athletics shortstop Jacob Wilson could never be a part of our family because he does not like to walk. Hey, we're going to go on a walk.
Nope.
You want to come? No, Jacob Wilson, no. No,
you want to do what?
You want to go where? Just walk around? No. And Jacob Wilson would just stay in the house and swing his bat. Jacob Wilson did not draw a walk for the first 87 plate appearances of this MLB season. And my good is that he drew his first walk of the year this week on April 22nd. And what I love the most about this, what I love the absolute most about this is that his first walk, he had not even been in a 3-ball count.
Yes, that's the best part of this. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Not to me. The best part of this to me is that the bases were loaded.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So the bases were loaded, which means he got an RBI walk. And what is something you hear at every Little League game, every high school game, a lot of college games, very many men's league games? What's a common refrain about walking, Jordan?
It's as good as a hit.
Walk's as good as a hit. Walk is as good as a hit. And a walk is good. It is often not as good as a hit. There are runners on base. You know how good a double is? Twice as good as a walk. All right. Mm-hmm. But in this rare instance, a walk was basically as good as a hit.
At least closer to it than normal.
Yeah. Closer than normal. And Jacob Wilson was like, seems like a good time to walk. And he did. Yeah. So kudos to him for walking. You are now invited to the Eisen Mintz family household for a walk around the block.
I was very adamant coming into the season that Jacob Wilson, because of his approach and skills in this facet, which is, again, the way you get away with this is that you can put the bat on the ball better than basically anybody not named Luis Ariz. He is attempting to be Luis Ariz as a shortstop and a right-handed hitter, and it is amazing. And I love that he took it to the extreme. So Jacob Wilson, walk-off hit last night, not a walk-off walk. So shout out to Jacob Wilson. My bad this week is Colorado Rockies, and we'll probably be bad every week. But more specifically,
more
specifically, we got an email from Josh earlier this week contemplating the Rockies' potential to be the worst road team in baseball history. And I am here to report that I think Josh is spot on.
Good job, Josh.
The Rockies, who are now 4-20 overall, we love that for them.
Blaze up.
After getting swept by the Royals on the road, are 1-11 on the road. Their only road win this year, opening weekend at the Stein, a 2-1 victory against the mighty Tampa Bay Rays. And right now, at 1-14, they are on pace to win roughly 7 road games.
That's not enough.
The record for lowest amount of road wins in a season is a tie between the 1963 Mets and the 2010 Pirates, 17-64. There are some worse winning percentages before that, you played 81 road games, but those are really the marks to beat, 17-64. The White Sox last year, for those wondering, 18-63. The 2018 Orioles, which you're familiar with, they were 19-62. 2021 D-backs, 20-61. So we've been trending towards historic ineptitude on the road. And I do not see any reason why the Rockies cannot smash this record. I do think they're going to still find their way into some weird wins at home over the course of the season, but getting to 17 road wins does feel very challenging. And so we will be watching this all season long. Thank you, Josh, for flagging, and it will certainly remain on my radar, but not for another week or so as they return home for, I think, a 7-game homestand starting tonight. What was bad for you, Jake?
I made a mistake. I did it bad.
Oh, you did it bad.
I did it bad. Kind of.
Oh.
This was a quote from Wednesday after Edwin Diaz was removed from the ball game. Okay. He had like a weird hip thing. He was taken out after the game.
This was almost my Uggla. Yep.
Okay. After the game, he was asked about what happened. He said he had hip cramps. Oh, okay. Not a big issue.
Sure. Happens.
Then he said it might be related to the following thing that happened. Mets trainers apparently noticed. When I saw this, I had to like watch it 7 times to like realize what was going on. Mets trainers noticed that one of his legs was longer than the other, and so they worked it out, and that maybe was related to the soreness. He said, quote, they were able to fix the issue, and he was feeling better after. So the reason this is bad is that I was in the room when this happened. Okay. I was in the room while Diaz was talking, and I was not paying attention. Okay. I was not in the scrum. I was off to the side.
I was wondering this because I thought that if you were, I assumed you weren't, because if you were, I was hoping you would have texted me immediately and feel like Diaz said, what?
I was off to the side talking to Pete Alonso and Jesse Winker about Jesse Winker's 2011 high school travel baseball team.
I mean, to be fair, I would have been doing the same thing.
Sure.
So,
but but bad for me for not being in the scrum and saying, yes, Edwin, one of your legs was longer. Excuse me?
Was
than
that
the other? Did they fixed it? Did they saw off your foot? Like, I did some research. Turns out that you can, at times, like due to tightness in your extremities, one can be longer than the other. But the fact he was like, like my left leg was longer, and they rubbed it a bunch, and now I'm
They're
fine.
like, yes.
Bodies are weirdos, man. Bodies are weird.
It's also so funny because I'd imagine that, like, if the Mets had lost, this could have been like, oh no, like the tone would have been like, oh my God, what's wrong with Edwin Diaz? But now it's like, oh, his legs are weirdly sized. Oh,
that's
okay.
Weird.
Moving on.
Anyway, but it's bad because I missed this and I was 10 feet away from it.
My Uggla is also Mets related. Steve Cohen has logged back on. This should not be a surprise as the Mets are hot. And so Steve Cohen's like, time to fire off some tweets. Steve Cohen I love the way he uses Twitter now. This is all of his tweets are funny in their own ways, but his most recent one after their latest win is so great for so many reasons. It's so Uggla. Steve Cohen posts, "We need to keep riding this wave. There will be mean reversion misspelled, but that's fine, at some point. But there is something special happening at Citi Field. So much fun."
Look, he didn't make billions by winning the spelling bee. Okay?
That's true. That's true. Sorry.
Now, there's an implication he means reversion to the mean. But I like the idea that he's like, that's a mean reversion.
So, mean reversion is essentially just, as you say, and it's not exactly the same, but it's a version of, regression to the mean in finance terms, which is clearly why he's saying this instead of just being like, we're going to regress to like not winning every game, which is what normal people would say. He doesn't want to promise an 80-1 record.
Well, that's the thing.
It's like, Steve Cohen's like, listen, like, keep coming out. We're having a great time. We aren't going to win every single, like, I hope you guys understand, like, I will not promise that we're going to win every single home game, but we're having a great time. Something special. But just know there's some mean reversion is mean reversion.
It is a
I just and just all of his syntax, some of the spelling, some of it is so good.
He's great,
but it's Uggla, but it's also Uggla. Because it's again like the owner telling the fans, don't get too excited.
Nope. Easy
is incredible.
I want him to tweet every day.
I do too. Not at people. That's probably not for the best. But if he wants to just send out his own thoughts, yeah.
Give me like your review of Griffin Canning's, 6 strong. Also,
he's like posting screenshots of the Savant game feed. Canning's, slider really moving today.
Fan. He's a fan. He's a fan. He's a fan. People have said, Jake, you make a mean risotto.
Yeah.
Make a mean reversion.
The Mets make a mean reversion. We'll see. But then of course, when they lose 10 in a row or whatever, we'll just have to come and be like, well, he told us.
Steve be like,
Steve Cohen knew it was coming. All right, what's your
Uggla? My Uggla also Mets related. This is a tweet that made me absolutely giggle up a storm this morning. This is from a Twitter user at AI Perverses. It is a screenshot of another tweet from a friend of theirs. Now, this is related to the following news. Brett Beatty was sent down.
Oh.
Brett Beatty was demoted today to AAA as the Mets are bringing Jeff McNeil back. Now, you look at the roster. Jeff McNeil and Francisco Alvarez back. Hayden Singer and Brett Beatty down. Now, you can look at the roster and be like, why do you need Jose Azocar? Well, he plays the outfield. And if you have Beatty, McNeil, and Acuna, it's a little redundant.
Yep.
So Beatty had to go.
Jose Siri injured.
So,
yeah.
Even though Beatty, was just hit a ball 114 miles an hour off Zach Wheeler. Get ready to learn Syracuse. Sorry.
Should have hit it 115 miles an hour.
Should have. How hard did Brett Beatty need to hit that ball to not get sent down? Like, if he had hit it 125, the Mets are not sending him down.
125, right? If he sets the StatCast record, I don't know if you can
send him down. This guy just hit the hardest baseball ever.
Yeah, I agree. Can't do that.
Okay. Anyway, this tweet is a quote tweet of the Brett Beatty getting sent down. And it's just someone going, sent down to where? What the hell is a sent down? Where is he going? Will he be okay? And the tweet says, one of my friend's first season as a baseball fan, right? Sent down to where? And it was just this great, it made me laugh so hard, right? Like, to hell? Like, to the severance floor?
Yes, exactly. Is he going into the basement below the stadium?
Citi Field dungeon? It's just a great reminder that the lingo and the language that we use to talk about this dumb sport, not everybody knows it all the time. Okay? Yeah. Oh, he was sent down. Oh, this game was banged. Right?
It's like, what? Excuse me? There's a lot of that.
It's been a long road trip, but today we just got to strap it on and play one more. Right? Like, this is normal. This is normal. But people don't understand that because it's in insular place. So anyway, send me down. Great.
I'm jealous that, I wish we can maintain that perspective more often.
Sent down to where?
Jake, we have a wonderful weekend of baseball ahead of us. Just a couple highlights before we say goodbye. We have the Pirates and Dodgers is not exactly the most compelling matchup on paper, except when you realize that Paul Skeens is pitching against Yoshinobu Yamamoto tonight at Dodger Stadium. That will be wonderful. We've got, I am very compelled by the Phillies going to the Cubs. The Phillies now jumping on this Wrigley Field roller coaster. Good luck to them. By the time you're listening to this, that game's probably already going on. Yeah, today. You're probably watching it right now. Is Taijuan Walker still in the game? Good luck to him. I know he's been okay so far, but
we do not gamble on baseball, nor do we give gambling advice. I would take the over on the Taijuan Walker, Colin Ray daytime.
Colin Ray has also been throwing the ball quite well. I will be seeing a little bit of the Boston Red Sox here in Cleveland. Are you planning on going to the ball yard this weekend?
I'll be at the yard. Got a little karaoke birthday party for my old wife piece.
On
Saturday night. Nice. So cool. I'll be singing Halo by Beyonce as I do. I will be watching though Red Sox Guardians, I think is the series I am most.
That's where I'll be. So we will be back on Monday. Thank you to Carter Singh for producing. You can email us at baseballbarbacast@gmail.com. And we'll talk to you later. Bye.
Make sure Stay meteor.